This episode is divided into 3 parts. The first part is a little bit... Excuse me first. Gentlemen, can you hold it down? I'm trying to record a video for YouTube. Thank you. The first part is about David Faraday and his father, Thomas Faraday. And then the second part is about the Zodiac Killer, a little biography. And then the third part is the connection between them. So let's begin. David Faraday was the first known victim of the Zodiac Killer. And here's a photograph of his father when he was in school. Thomas Faraday, born June 2nd, 1926. He went to George Washington High School in 1944 in San Francisco. And here's a map of San Francisco. And he lived at 633 6th Avenue. And then over to the bottom left corner is George Washington High School. And then to the top rightish is the Zodiac crime scene where Paul Stine was murdered. And above is the Presidio. When Thomas Faraday turned 18 years old, he registered for the military service. And so you can see his address there. And then you can see that he was living with his mom. And you can see that she worked on Treasure Island. By 1960, Thomas was married to Jean, and they lived in San Rafael. And then in 1965, they lived in Petaluma. And he was working for Pacific Gas and Electric. And then in 1966, they moved to Vallejo. And then in 1969, that's when the Zodiac killed David. And then in 1970, he moved to Salinas. But Jean stayed in Vallejo for a few years. And then by 1974, they lived in Salinas together. The Zodiac Killer was born on October 28, 1936 in San Francisco. And his father's name was George. And his mother's name was Margaret, or Peggy, as they called her. And they got married on September 28th, 1932, in this church here. And now the story is going to get quite interesting. And the reception was held at this property right here on Washington Street in San Francisco. Now here's a modern look at the site where Paul Stine was murdered. And if we turn west and head down this way on Washington Street, and you look here to the side right here. Oh, wait a minute. That's not the right place. Excuse me. Move down a little bit farther. And right there, that's where the reception was held for the Zodiac's brother-in-law and father-in-law lived. Now, sometime after they got married, they lived in Fort Bragg, California. And they had 2 kids, Michael and the Zodiac Killer. And then they moved to San Rafael, California. Then tragedy struck. The Zodiac's father, George, died on January 2nd, 1948. And was the viewing, I guess? And then the viewing took place at 3979 Washington Street. A year later, the Zodiac's mother remarried. So as we're looking at this picture, from left to right, in the center is Barrett, the Zodiac Killer's new stepdad. I guess he's in the center no matter what. And then on the left is Peter, and then Michael, the Zodiac's brother, and then Scott, and then the Zodiac Killer on the right. Now, the Zodiac Killer did graduate from high school. He went to Sir Francis Drake High School, and he graduated from there in 1954. This is his junior year. And then he went to the University of California, Berkeley, and he graduated from there, I believe, in 1961. And then at some point, the Zodiac worked in San Francisco as a commodity trader in the financial district, Monday through Friday, early on Monday morning, and he either was finished by 2 p.m. or 4 p.m. And he had this hobby of coin collecting and collecting some other older items. And he showed a movie to his club at this location right here in Mill Valley. And by November 1968, the Zodiac Killer was on this committee, the San Francisco Opera Action Committee, supporting operas, because I guess they needed to gain support to keep the operas going. The Zodiac Killer was born on October 28, 1936 in San Francisco, and his father's name was George. And he went to Alameda High School, and he was part of the Sword and Shield. He was the vice president, and his father's name was George also. And, you ready for the real shocker? The moment of truth here. David Faraday's father's father is George. He was much older than Thomas's mother. So David Faraday's grandfather is the Zodiac Killer's grandfather. Well, this ends this episode of Unsolved, and next weekend on Saturday I'll have more about the Zodiac Killer. See ya.